Net suppression is really a case of Simpson's paradox. And that just means that we are getting contradictory and confusing results until we properly specify our model and include the relevant covariate that needs to be included to be able to understand the pattern of relationships. And so, for example, we have a relationship between x2 and y that we are seeing is a little bit off. But then when we include x1, then everything falls into place and we understand the relationship between x2 and y in a different light. And let me show you how this works. So let's say our DV is fire damage. So we're doing a study on firefighters and we're trying to understand why we send a lot of firefighters to the fire, but there's still a lot of damage from the fire. And so before we go making any causal assumptions about when we send more firefighters, there's just more fire damage, so the firefighters must be doing something incompetent in their job, we need to really think through this pattern of relationships. So let's say that we were doing a study and we wanted to correlate those two variables. So the number of firefighters sent to the fire, and we expect that that will impact fire damage in a negative way. Okay, so we expect a negative relationship. The more that are sent, the less damage, we would hope, because these are good, competent folks who are doing this. So if we graphed this relationship with no thought to the fire severity, no accounting for how severe that fire was, we would see a relationship like the red line. We would see this positive relationship between the number of firefighters sent, or X2, and the fire damage. However, we have a misspecified mediation going on here, because really what's happening is there's a fire and it's very severe, and based on the severity, we're going to determine how many firefighters are sent to that fire, mediator, and then we're going to have that number of firefighters impacting, hopefully negatively, fire damage, such that the number of firefighters causes less damage on that B path. Okay, so we have a mediation such that fire severities are IV. That's going to be positively related to number of firefighters, so we have a positive A path, and then number of firefighters will hopefully negatively predict fire damage, so we have a negative B path. But without that IV, we're basically not seeing the full picture, and we have a different sign for our bivariate there, where we have a positive relationship between number of firefighters sent and fire damage. And that doesn't make any sense conceptually. And if we were a researcher and we saw that result, we would want to understand, is there a variable we're not accounting for here? And this is a case of net suppression, or Simpson's paradox, where if we don't have that third variable that explains what's going on, we're going to make all kinds of wonky inferences that we don't want. Okay, so this is an example of net suppression. It's one of my favorites. It's very counterintuitive. We don't expect the number of firefighters to positively predict fire damage, but basically that's what we see. So this is, again, when you see this happening in your data, you can know that this is a case of net suppression, where we have a bivariate that is of one sign, a positive relationship between the number of firefighters sent and fire damage, but that beta weight turns negative with the addition of the fire severity variable, which is really the important variable that's causing both of the other things to occur, both X2 and Y. So this again harkens back to the idea of having a clear causal theory about what's going on in your particular scenario that you're looking at, in your particular context. It's the same thing if you're evaluating an intervention. You want to understand, how is this training, how is this therapy, how is this program that's helping individuals, how is it working, what are the causal links, So we talk a lot about that in program theory and program evaluation. It's the same thing in this case. When we don't have a clear picture of the causality, we'll make some weird inferences and see Simpson's paradox in its full light. And so we don't want to be scared by it. We can figure it out through logic. And so as you're preparing for the exam, think about these examples. I won't ask you to generate examples on your own of these kinds of things. They take a lot of thought. But I want you to be able to recognize when these kind of things are happening. So I may give you a scenario and ask, what's going on here? And you would look for the hidden variable that's really explaining the relationships and be able to talk about how that, including that in our regression model, will change and give us a more accurate picture of what's happening.